Today I'm going to be comparing Mexico with Argentina. So this guy on this chat group in Facebook asked the following question. I'm planning a digital nomad trip and trying to decide between CDMX and Buenos Aires. For those who don't know, CDMX is the official name of the capital of Mexico, which in English is Mexico City. And Buenos Aires is also the capital of Argentina. So he wants to compare two capital cities which are very different from each other, but they're both known as great cities. They're both known as huge metropolis. They're both the two most important cities in all of Latin America, and they could easily compete with New York City, with Los Angeles, and with the biggest cities in the United States, because these are massive cities. For instance, Mexico City has a population of over 9 million people. That's a lot of people in a small city. And the surrounding municipalities, the surrounding areas of the metropolis have over 20 million people. So it's pretty crazy. Buenos Aires, it's a little bit smaller by population than Mexico City. It has around 5 million people living in what you call Cava, living in what you call the capital of Buenos Aires. But then the surrounding areas, the surrounding suburbs have 10 million people. It is known that Argentina, even though it is the 8th biggest country in the world, half of the population is basically concentrated around the capital, around Buenos Aires. That's what made it such a big and important city. I don't know about Mexico statistics, because Mexico is also a big country with a bigger population than Argentina, but I doubt half of them live in Mexico City because it's a much bigger country. Argentina has a very small population. For it being the 8th biggest country in the world, it only has around 40 million people, and it's slowly growing, but that's about it. So let's read the following question. For those who've been to both Ciudad de Mexico and Buenos Aires, how do they compare in terms of safety, crime, and cost of living? I've heard BA has gotten pretty expensive lately. Now, that being said, I have insider information because I have a few friends that are from Mexico, and one of them visited Argentina recently, and the other one lives in Argentina for the past 12 years. And he just went back to Mexico 2 weeks ago. Those of you who know me know him, and those of you who know him know that this is true. He just returned to Mexico just last week. It hasn't even been a full week, and he lives here in Argentina. He tells me Mexico's more expensive. Obviously, supermarket items and stuff like that, and obviously other parts of Mexico are cheaper, but Mexico City, he tells me, it's more expensive. I haven't been to Mexico City. I've been to Mexico 4 times, but I've never been to Mexico City. But he tells me it's more expensive. Now let's get into some of the comments. That way you don't have to hear my opinion. You can hear what other people have said. He says, I've been living in Ciudad de Mexico for almost 5 years, and Buenos Aires blew me away with how clean and safe it felt. No way. I just talked for like 10 minutes, but I had the video on pause. So I'm just gonna let that go. I was very passionate and it came out perfect, but I had it on pause. But let's read this. I've been living in Mexico City for almost 5 years, and Buenos Aires blew me away with how clean and safe it felt. Like, it actually gave me a bit of existential crisis. I will say that I prefer the Mexican culture and food, and I like being a quick $300 flight away from my family in the US. In terms of cost, Palermo is comparable to Roma Norte, Condensa, but working class areas in Buenos Aires are cheaper than the same in Ciudad de Mexico. That is true. That is actually what I said when I paused the video. I was saying that my friend, he's Mexican and he lives in Buenos Aires for like the last 12 years, and he returns to Mexico City every year for a few months, and he tells me that Mexico is more expensive. Obviously, groceries and getting like a quick bite and a quick snack is probably cheaper in Mexico, but overall cost of living, it's either the same or a little more expensive in Mexico. That is what he told me. That is what some Mexican friends with knowledge of Buenos Aires told me. So imported items are extremely expensive compared to Mexico. That is extremely true. You know, Mexico receives tons of imports from China before making their way to before sending them to United States. And Mexico is better situated to receive imports because they have a big trade. So imported items in Mexico are probably dirt cheap, especially electronics and stuff like that. But other stuff are a little more expensive. Like Mexico City has much more high-end and world-renowned restaurants than Argentina. I haven't looked this up, but I guarantee you that Mexico City, I will bet money that Mexico City has more Michelin star rated restaurants than all of Argentina. I know that for a fact. So it says, if your laptop dies, your phone gets stolen in Argentina, those prices will hurt. That is true. That is true. Getting documents by mail is also a huge gamble and several times are more expensive compared to Mexico. I've shipped stuff to Mexico. They're a pain in the butt. So, but I'm sure it's since being so close to the United States, you know, but that depends where you're shipping from. So you're shipping from the United States, it's probably going to be quick, cheap, and efficient. But if you're shipping from somewhere else, it's not. And shipping to Argentina is a nightmare. Do not do it. Do not do it. Do not ever, under any circumstances, even using DHL, FedEx, anything, do not ever ship yourself anything to Argentina. Anything. Maybe a document, but they'll still even give you a hard time. Want to charge you hundreds of dollars for even the simplest item that you're receiving and give you the go around and have you hire an importer. It's just a headache here. Hopefully things change soon. So this guy says, clean. Which Buenos Aires are you in? The city has lots of things. Clean is not one of them. It is clean. Stop exaggerating. It's getting cleaner by the day because they just installed new garbage cans. Obviously, there's some areas that are dirty and stuff like that, but like you go around Palermo Chico, it's spotless. Yeah, sometimes there's some dog poop. Yeah, some of the party area smells like pee-pee, you know, and sometimes some homeless go into the garbage can and empty it all out. But it gets cleaned immediately within 24 hours. It is clean for general, you know. Go to New York. I've been to Chinatown. It's disgusting. It's filthy. Come on. Parts of Miami are filthy. So in comparison, Buenos Aires is clean. Otherwise, and every city's filthy, you know. In global terms, I feel. He meant to say I feel. The areas I've been to are pretty clean, certainly compared to Santo Domingo or Delhi, for example. Exactly, I agree. Compared to Delhi, I guess it is clean if you're standard, blah, 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 blah. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and while Buenos Aires at first internation destination, I plan to travel to the neighborhoods. I've stayed in the cleaner area than back home. I stayed here in Caballito, Armango. Yes, she is saying that Buenos Aires is cleaner than some cities in the United States. This is a hard one, honestly. Back to the original question. This is about comparing Mexico to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. This guy says, this is a hard one, honestly. And I say this as someone as someone who was born in Buenos Aires. I love Buenos Aires. I hate when locals participate in this. This is an expat forum. You know, this is an expat forum for foreigners. I guess if you're in Argentina, if you're born in Argentina and you live somewhere else, it makes you an expat. But let's see what he has to say, because I kind of, they could be biased, and a lot of locals actually hate their country or hate their city. So although the majority of Argentinians are very patriotic and really do love Argentina, as me, I'm from the United States and I love Argentina myself too. But let's see what he has to say. This is a hard one, honestly. And I say it as someone who was born in Buenos Aires. I love Buenos Aires, and it's a no-brainer doing the cheap cycles of the Argentinian economy. But Mexico in general is cool, amazing culture, lovely food, way more stable prices, availability of stuff, and physical proximity to the United States. For me personally, at my current age, I'd be Buenos Aires due to family and friends. But trying to imagine a life without family in Argentina, I may actually incline for several places in Mexico. So that's not the question. He's not comparing Mexico or Argentina. The original poster is comparing Mexico City. Mexico to Argentina is completely different. You know, I'd rather be in a beach in a coast of Mexico, but Mexico City does not have beaches. You know, come on. He's comparing Buenos Aires specifically to Mexico City, not other parts. So this guy just took everything the wrong way. Have in mind that the CDMX population seems to be showing a bit more than the discontent with the digital nomads. Yeah, but no. That's people talking crap online. You know, Mexico City wouldn't be Mexico City without the nomads, without the tourism. It wouldn't be what it is. Most restaurants will close down. I doubt it's a safety issue, but it may take some sort of social aspects and a bit more of uphill battle, like making friends. In Buenos Aires, nobody cares where you're from. That's true. Buenos Aires is very open, welcoming, and warm. This guy said, well, I travel there quite a bit. I don't see issues with Americans. At least it's not for being Americans. The issues I am taking about is more around gentrification and prices going up for locals. With the retirees, a bit less evident, but now with digital nomads, it's been a bit more of a big deal. That's true everywhere. I'm from Miami, Florida. It's a city in United States. Gentrification is huge there. It pushed out people from low-income homes from the ghettos, and they build skyscrapers in the metropolis and everything. Like take Wynwood, for example. It was a little ghetto with like a bunch of warehouses, lots of, you know, abandoned buildings, lots of projects. It was very cheap. And people live there. You know, they have the right to live where they live where they could afford. What did they do? They built like a city bigger than Palermo there, with bars, with high rises, and they pushed everybody out. Gentrification happens everywhere. I'm from the suburbs in Miami, near the airport, and rent went through the roof there, pushing us out too. I know people that had to leave Florida because they couldn't, you know, afford it anymore. Gentrification happens everywhere. So let's not cry about that. People in Buenos Aires, oh, it's getting expensive. Well, that's good for some people, right? It's good for the landlords. You know, they hike up the rent and they make a killing. You know, they make a lot of money. It's good for the locals that have businesses here. You know, they could thrive, they could survive. So gentrification is called evolution, and it's going to happen. And I don't see anything wrong with it. You don't like it, adapt, start a business, rent out your property, or move. That's how it happens. Or otherwise, what? What's the other option? You don't want people to travel? So if you're born in your shitty place, shitty violent neighborhood, you need to stay there and die? You know, that does not make any sense. You need to be nice, no boundaries, no frontiers, and let people travel and move wherever they want to, as long as they do it in a respectful manner. Otherwise, have your president or your local authorities ban it, outlaw it. But if people are illegally traveling and paying their rent and bringing money to the economy, why are you going to get upset? Especially with nomads. Nomads usually work remotely, so they don't make money from the local economy. Instead, they stimulate the local economy. So how could you be mad at that? You look at the best countries in the world, I mean, the countries that have the best economy in the world, they have the most tourism, they have the most immigrants, and they have the most nomads and expats. Talking about United States, China, France, you know, most of Europe, they have a lot of immigrants. So Buenos Aires is 100% better and very safe in Mexico, which is too much violence and safe. Oh, she meant to say that Buenos Aires is safe, Mexico is too violent and unsafe. But whatever, I don't know how she wrote it. Buenos Aires is definitely more safe. More safe? Guys, Buenos Aires is safer. You don't put more safe. But somewhat more complicated when you want to cook, as there's less variety of products, or you will spend more time looking for them. Also very expensive recently if you're eating out. It depends where you're eating out. I've had dinners for $10. And I recently had a pretty extravagant dinner with a friend. We had a cocktail, we had a full bottle of wine, we had an appetizer, a steak entree, and a pasta entree and some added sauces that we had to pay for, we spent around 30 or 35 United States dollars, which dinner for two with a bottle of wine, and we left full. That's, in Palermo, that's a pretty good deal. Anyone looking up that, it's called Bodegon Bella Gamba. But you could have cheaper dinners as well. But you could have more expensive dinners. Depends what you choose. But Ciudad de Mexico, I guarantee you, you cannot get in a nice area of Ciudad de Mexico a dinner for two with a bottle of wine for $35. It is impossible. At a cheaper restaurant, yeah, but not in the nicest area. Like Medellin, in Poblado, you cannot do that. The altitude, Miami, you can't even get a bottle of wine in a restaurant for under $40. So the altitude and air quality in Mexico City would be a no for me. Only downside of Buenos Aires is the cost of eating out and electronics and how far it is from the United States and Europe. Everything else I love. What was he saying? Eating out, come on, guy. Like, where are you eating out at? I could have 3 empanadas for under $3 and I'm full. I could have a decent dinner for under $10 and I'm full. If you're eating at fancy restaurants, don't cry about it. Because Mexico City has expensive restaurants too. That would be like $100 per person, easy. I've been also warning about this. I have never been to Ciudad de Mexico, but I really enjoyed Buenos Aires while I was there for a month. I might have to make the decision in a few weeks if my visa is not renewed in Colombia. I also have a dog, and it's not an easy decision. Get out of Colombia. No, thank you. The food sucks in Colombia. Sorry, guys. I've been in Colombia 2 months, and it sucked. I like the people. They're nice. The culture is pretty cool. They're very happy. But it is one of the most dangerous countries in all of the Americas. Look up the statistics. They have around 24 murders per every 100,000 inhabitants. Hands down, Ciudad de Mexico. Okay, let's see. We have lived in both. For us, Ciudad de Mexico is much more exciting, friendly, interesting. It's not friendlier than Buenos Aires. Interesting, international. It is more international, even though Buenos Aires has a lot. Okay, I'm going to stop. Sorry, guys. For us, Ciudad de Mexico is just much more exciting, friendly, interesting, international. The location is more convenient. The food variety in Ciudad de Mexico is a million times wider. That's true. Fresher and better. The accommodation in Ciudad de Mexico is better. Buenos Aires is a 5-day city, in my opinion. False. Beautiful, yes, but same. Ciudad de Mexico, huge variety, art, culture, galleries, parks, and things going on constantly. They just don't compare. Valles feels like a country town comparison. Safety, both the same for us. Never had an issue in Ciudad de Mexico. Metroed, biked, walked. The weather in Buenos Aires is variable. Summer is just horrible, and then it goes gray. Ciudad de Mexico weather is beautiful all year. Buenos Aires is frightfully expensive too. You just can't get over how expensive it is, and prices seem to go up at least 10% a month, even if inflation doesn't. Ciudad de Mexico has loads of beautiful little towns nearby for breaks too. If you want Europe vibe, then go to Buenos Aires. But it's not Europe. But if you want everything else, I know where I'd go, Ciudad de Mexico. It's the coolest city in the world right now for a good reason. They are both interesting places, so it really, sorry guys, my throat hurts. They are both very interesting places, so it really depends on what you want to experience. Mexico City grabs you and you'll want to stay. Buenos Aires never quite do that to you, but always feel like temporary solution experience, I suggest. I really disagree with a lot of things he says, but he did make the best comment, hands down. I gotta hand it to you. Very, very well put comment. You did mention a lot of things. What killed it for you was the end. Buenos Aires will never quite do that to you. That's not true. It doesn't do that to you, but it did it to so many other people. I know so many people, I'm not exaggerating, over 40 people that have come to Buenos Aires and came back. I visited so many countries that I never revisited. I never returned. But I know so many people that came to Buenos Aires and they came back within a year or two, including myself. And I know so many people that have come to Buenos Aires for 2 weeks, for 2 months, whatever the case may be, and extended their trip. Ended up extending it, paying a difference or getting the free extension from the airline to stay more. I've done so myself. Not saying that Ciudad de Mexico is not better, does not beat it, or people don't do the same thing, but you can't say that about Buenos Aires. Food variety, true. Expert opinion, Mexico has a much bigger food variety and diverse food variety. That is so true. Safety, you're wrong there, buddy. Safety is not a personal, oh, I went through there, nothing happened to me. That's not true, bro. Yeah, nothing happened to you. But does that, disregard the fact that thousands of people die? No, it doesn't. So personal experiences are just that. It's your personal experience. You went to World War II, you went to Vietnam, you came back alive. Vietnam wasn't dangerous, I came back alive. How does that sound? No, it was. Imagine someone surviving the Holocaust. Sorry, this is the most terrible analogy, but it's true. This is what that means. When you say something like, it's safety doesn't concern me because nothing happened to me, or I went there, it's safe. No. You have to look at the math. Statistics don't lie. That's like saying, I survived the Holocaust. I was there in Germany and in Russia. Nothing happened to me. That's what you're saying. No, millions died, fool. So yeah. But remember, I'm not hating. I said this is the best comment ever. Best comment ever. Buenos Aires, 5-day city? No way. You couldn't cover 10% of Buenos Aires in 5 days. Never. There's so much to do in Buenos Aires. It's a city that never sleeps. There's something every day. But I guess if you're old, boring, don't like the nightlife, don't like, if you don't understand Spanish, there's Broadways here for people who don't understand. There's theaters, there's shows, there's live programs every single day. It's like Times Square. There's so much to do. And you don't need to know Spanish. There's so much to do either way. But yeah, great comment either way. I like it. I prefer Mexico City because of the food scene. It's far superior than Buenos Aires. And it's much cheaper. I don't know about much cheaper. I have spent many months in Ciudad de Mexico and I've never felt unsafe there. Okay, but that doesn't, again, you never felt unsafe. But there is a safety issue. I have my camera out on odd hours by myself and no one has ever tried to rob me. No, they don't rob petty stuff there. It just kill you for like stepping on someone's shoes. Mexico has dangerous spots, but the federal capital is not considered cartel hot spot. I also like the climate in Ciudad de Mexico better. Oh, that's one thing that the last comment mentioned, and he did too. The weather is so much more better in Mexico. Come on, of course. Argentina, it's hot and humid during the summer, which I don't mind because I'm from hot and humid Miami, Florida. So it's something I'm used to. But the winter here is cold and humid. And it's long. The winter in Argentina is like 6 months long. So it's cold. It's frigid. I hate it. Obviously, if you're from Chicago, New York, Russia, Canada, the winter here is beautiful. It's a breeze because it doesn't really snow in Buenos Aires. But if you're from Florida, the winter is unbearable. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from the tropics. This winter is unbearable. I would much prefer Mexico. Mexico has, Mexico is basically a desert near the ocean. So I would love that. So less hot. They're hot months because of the elevation. Big problem with Mexico City is the dogs. It's very hard to find an apartment without being surrounded by barking dogs. Ooh, I would hate that. That is terrible. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I love Buenos Aires, but my heart is in Mexico. One huge advantage of Buenos Aires is that I don't get physically ill from bad hygiene around food, which Mexico suffers from. Buenos Aires is beautiful and well maintained compared to any place in Mexico. You're far less likely to feel like you're rock climbing on the sidewalks. I didn't get that, but you could pause it and reread it because my throat hurts. Everyone is hating Argentina now because the new economic policies have made prices skyrocket, although the hope is that eventually the invisible hand of the free market will adjust that. That's true. But as many people said, Mexican culture to me is far more interesting. I attribute to the beautiful mixture of indigenous and European culture. Buenos Aires has much more European feel without, in fact, being Europe. It is Europe. Most of the ancestors, and traditions here are European, Italian, French, German, just to name a few. Mexico has the advantage of being easier to get to. Yeah, that's a personal thing. Mexico has the advantage of being easier to get to. If you're from the United States, if you're from Europe, if you're from Asia, or wherever else, I don't know. Those weren't examples, I'm just saying. It's a personal preference. I also found that getting medical care in Argentina is almost impossible as a foreigner, while Mexico is pretty easy peasy. That's not true. Medical care in Argentina is free for anyone and everyone, foreigners. I know the laws may be changing soon, but it's free. International healthcare they have here in all of Argentina, especially if you're from the United States. And in Argentina, you could get like an insurance plan and you have great medical coverage at the private hospitals. That said, as a drummer, I found an amazing community of drummers and I have found friendships in Buenos Aires that I miss desperately when I leave. Yeah, Buenos Aires has a lot of live rock. I keep adding more though. One thing to seriously consider is that if you're not fluent in Spanish, you'll probably find Mexican Spanish easier. Most people, though not me, find Argentinian Spanish, Rio Platense Spanish difficult. And I didn't say anything about crime. I hear no stories about street crime in Buenos Aires. Not saying that it doesn't happen, just saying I never heard of people in my circles being mugged. In my circle, they have been mugged. I know people in Buenos Aires that have been beat up for their cell phone, for their book bag, that have beat up and robbed. Nothing, no one with serious injuries or being stabbed or killed, but it does happen. Not as much as Mexico, but it does happen. I hear those kinds of stories in Mexico all the time. See, Mexico's much more dangerous. That's anecdotal, but there you go. The crime I hear about firsthand in Buenos Aires are far more likely to be break-ins to houses. Break-ins to houses do not happen in the capital as much. It's like very rare. Break-ins to houses happen in the suburbs of Buenos Aires. Capital, you're more likely to get pickpocketed, which is not that common, but your phone snatched or your purse snatched. This guy says, I much prefer Ciudad de Mexico, especially now that Buenos Aires is more expensive. I'm actually going back to Guadalajara because BA is losing it. Yeah, but you're going to Guadalajara. Whatever. Mexico City is way better food and the better prices. Way better weather. Yeah, but more dangerous. I'm just messing with you guys. It's the truth though. I don't know what that says. Personally, if you guys want, you could like pause and read these because I'm done reading. This video went on for too long. My throat hurts. Pause and read it. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching. If you appreciate this and you want to know more content about traveling international, about being a nomad, about being an expat, about living in Argentina or visiting or having a trip in Argentina, please subscribe and like the channel. If you want to contribute to me, you could. I have, I'll leave all that information in the comment section or in the description of this video. So just hit that chat little button, hit that thumbs up little button, and hit me up. For those who don't know, my name is Leo. I'm from Miami, Florida. I've been living in Argentina for the past 4 years as a snowbird, but this year I've been here since December and I plan to stay throughout the whole year. So take care guys. Thank you guys for watching. Love you guys.